When Southern Florida College hired esteemed American architect Frank Lloyd Wright to design their campus in 1938, they had no idea they had become complicit in effecting a cultural suicide. They had likely seen Lloyd's stunning creation, Falling Waters, and believed they would receive an enchanted masterpiece, seeing as how the architect was afforded ample time and resources. They may have anticipated a beautiful campus like that of Flagler College, originally constructed as a hotel in 1888. Allegedly. A campus widely regarded as one of the most beautiful in the world. But a few years later, in 1941, as the Second World War was in full swing, the first buildings were unveiled. The staff must have thought they were the victims of an awful prank. The new, modern buildings were sterile, deformed monstrosities, unlike anything many people had ever seen before. Unbeknownst to them, they had been the guinea pig test subjects for a new style of architectural warfare, brutalism. They perhaps had not dug deep enough into the murky past of this troubled man to know what they were getting into.
Welcome to Florida, baby.
Introducing Dr. Narco Longo.
Brutalism is a so-called architectural style introduced during and after World War II as a direct retaliation to the Nazi Party's embracement of traditionalist Old World architecture. Brutalism, also known as modernism and minimalism, is a movement that seeks to strip all cultural identity from the design of a structure. The resulting buildings are often described as ugly, bland, obnoxious, etc. But what is truly disturbing is their purpose. Structures like these are designed to drain you of your life force and rob you of your cultural dignity. These buildings embody anger, dominance, restriction, confinement, and frankly, mental illness. It is no wonder that brutalist architecture was a key component of post-war communism and neo-Marxism. If you haven't already woken up to the existence of the old world paradigm, often ambiguously referred to as Tartaria, under which architecture affirmed beauty, life, and harmony, then time is running out. We and our society are being engineered into a sterilized, cultureless, transhuman slave population, domesticated and force-acclimated to an industrialist, urban captivity. We have allowed ourselves to be brutalized, for lack of a better word. Is it any wonder that mental illness and atheism are commonplace in the world today? You can blame societal decay on many factors, but these brutal buildings certainly hold much responsibility. Back to Frank Lloyd Wright. This short video will shed some light on his disturbing life.
There is renewed interest in the dark history behind one of Wisconsin's most renowned landmarks.
The mass murder at Frank Lloyd Wright's Spring Green Estate, Taliesin. Colleen Henry joins us with a 12 News special report.
Latoya Taliesin is Welsh for shining brow, but it was home to a brutal mass murder. In August of 1914, Wright's mistress, Mama, her 2 children, and several of Wright's assistants died at the hands of a servant. The events fueled Wright's notoriety. He was a married man. He'd abandoned his wife and 6 children. Now his mistress was dead, and the world questioned the cost of genius.
Now probably the leading architect of the 20th century, Frank Lloyd Wright.
I've always flattered myself that what I represented was from the ground up.
He was one of the world's most masterful architects and one of architecture's most proficient self-promoters. Yet the most scandalous interlude of Frank Lloyd Wright's life was long a smoldering subtext in his personal history.
He fell in love with a client's wife.
By 1909, the boy from Richland Center, Wisconsin, had married a beautiful society girl, fathered 6 children, and become one of Chicago's most acclaimed architects.
It was a Chicago society scandal.
Wright and Mama Borthwick Cheney abandoned their families and fled to Europe, soulmates, unrestrained by societal convention. Wright scholar Ron McCrae says the press wasn't far behind.
They were good copy. He was always good copy. Someone tipped them off to where they were and that they were there together, and they had to split.
The couple spent a year abroad. They couldn't go back to Chicago, so Wright returned to Wisconsin to build this mansion for his mistress.
Taliesin was built very quietly. They moved in very quietly, and then suddenly the Chicago press got wind of it, and they all descended en masse.
And Wright fueled the headlines.
He basically got up and said, there's one rule for geniuses and another rule for everybody else when it comes to the rules of love and marriage.
By 1914, life had calmed down at Taliesin. One August day, as Wright worked in Chicago, a servant named Julian Carleton served lunch to Mama, her son John, and daughter Martha, who'd come for a summer visit.
Julian served lunch to Mama and her children on a porch, and then to all the workmen and the draftsmen at the other end of the building.
Gasoline was poured under a door here.
Julian lit a fire.
As the fire started, they would try to escape through this door, and he was standing outside with an axe.
There was quite a bit of chasing of people around, but it was half of them were on fire, and it was just a terrible, chaotic scene.
Carleton killed Mama first. An axe split her head. Then John and Martha. Then the workmen. Again, the newspapers screamed the headlines: 7 dead, Taliesin destroyed.
It was the crime of the century.
You know that there were people who thought, oh, this is...
Retribution, absolutely. Sure. Yeah, he had broken the bonds of society and God's law, and so he deserved what he got.
Before his arrest, Julian Carleton drank a bottle of acid. He died in jail, never revealing his motive for the Taliesin rampage. Wisconsin's most deadly mass murder soon dwindled from the headlines.
The past was the past, and especially if the past involved another woman.
Ron McCrae believes Wright's future wife, Olga Vanna. He was in Chicago working at the time, so he was never a suspect.
He moved on from this incident quite quickly.
Yeah, really. The murders happened in August. By Christmas, he'd rebuilt the residential ring at Taliesin, and he already had a new girlfriend.
And the motive still mystery.
Yeah, you know, few buy the retribution for the sins theory popular at the time, but there is evidence, actually, that one of Wright's assistants had used racist language with Carleton the servant. That doesn't really explain the mass murder. Most suspect Carleton suffered from some mental illness. He died without ever explaining.
All right, interesting. Thank you, Colleen.
One more thought. Is it not ironic that modern feminist neoliberal types are incessantly searching for signs of patriarchal oppression, yet have never taken issue with the harsh, overly masculine utilitarianism of this building style? A style completely void of the organic feminine artistic impulse, a style that epitomizes oppression. Perhaps they are too busy throwing Starbucks-shaped Molotov cocktails or getting septum piercings. You know, raging against the machine. I hope you will appreciate these images of glorious, harmonic, old-world architecture, aka Tartarian. But please look into brutalism and its dangers for yourself, as there are many other researchers who gracefully explain this greater concept of old and beautiful versus new and ugly. The Cultural Tutor on Twitter being one of them.